I'm going to review Mildred Pierce and the rest of these things. Well, James is actually going to review the rest of these things, come to think of it. And because I've already reviewed them. Well, I didn't review Active Measures, but anyway. So first I'm going to read a poem, and it's one of these, James does these accordion sort of things with traditional forms, traditional poetry forms. And this one is a Saturnian, but it won't sound like one. Anyway, but I have a tough time writing these things. I really don't enjoy it, and I don't know if I ever will, frankly. It's his style of writing. It's not mine.
It's one of my style.
And so whatever, but I'll read you one I wrote, and it's just like a lot of things, when I have trouble, it goes on too long. So this one's called Heatwave Purgatory. It's still so hot this morning, though the fan's been blowing. This heat wave's not soon breaking. Water bans will follow. The heat wave's just a warning, just enough. I'm going to turn to dust. This baking death is tough to swallow. And yet I keep on drinking. People do, though getting short of sleep. We're driven to get through. It's funny to live while we're not thinking. We survive by wetting the atmosphere that's given. All's alive and sunny, until it's not. Not sleeping isn't fun, it's sickening. But while it's hot here, little can be done. Life's heavy and breathing slow. Just keeping going's old. Blood's thickening and barely flow, and spittle dries to hold the levee. We look ahead to milder days to come. To follow these days we dread. We carry on just numb and dumber, but free of grief. Grief's wilder. We're just meat that's hollow within this brief but very brutal heat wave summer.
Yeah, it's a pretty good line. It sounds like a very tough one. Looks like a tough one. So what she calls accordion stuff is where you take a traditional form and cut up.
Yeah.
You have internal rhymes, so you cut it up two, 3 times
so
each line.
What he does is he'll put, he adds randomness to the rhymes, so he cuts it up into various ways and adds randomness. So they're not, the rhymes don't follow sequentially as you would expect they would.
I'm not a big fan of couplets.
Yeah, so they're,
use.
It's very difficult to write. It's very challenging, and it takes a lot of work. It's
the attempt is to make them into something like songs, but much more challenging than your typical song.
It's a
little bit like the best at Tin Pan Alley, but more so.
I don't know. It's James's way of doing things, and I don't know. It's not mine.
It's one of the ways I do things. I can write traditional songs. I can. Blank verse kind of bores me. I can write that easily, and I can write other forms too. It's just I prefer challenging myself.
Well,
I'm kind of.
There are all sorts of ways to challenge oneself. That's one way.
Well, that's one way I like challenging myself.
Yeah.
I challenge myself. Okay. Want to talk about Mildred Pierce?
I sure do.
I want to say it's an awesome looking cover.
It is.
Yep.
It's a great looking box. I mean, there's only 2 DVDs in here, but they've put together
it's really artsy.
The package really nicely. It's like a little book. And, well, I guess it was based on one. So, if I remember correctly, James M. Cain novel. I've never heard of
Never heard of it.
But anyway, I can't relate to the characters, but somehow they seem almost believable. Even though, I mean, what's her name? Is it Vida or Veda? I can't remember what her name was. But the one daughter who is just, she is dreadful. She is, nobody would want to, surely nobody would want that daughter. But it just goes to show what kind of children you can raise when you're a single mother who's very busy working outside of the home and hires young women to care for the house and stuff like that for her. So anyway, yeah, but what I was going to mention about that girl is, you know, the fact that she grows up and she's a big success at whatever, that's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. That wouldn't happen. And I don't want to let on what happens, because you don't know all the way along. You don't know what she's going to be a success, how she's going to be a success.
So she's raised by others, you were saying?
Yeah, she was basically, because her mother is busy working. Right?
Okay.
So,
hard to say what happened. You know,
but right away, she shouldn't have been, because she had this kind of uppity personality that she wanted to be aristocracy or whatever. So having somebody paid to care for her, when you already have a child that has those sort of inclinations, and then they have a servant, well, that's not going to work out too well, is it? You can't really expect it to. So anyway, yeah, I thought they did a great job making the movie. The acting was really good. I believe the costumes, the sets, the everything. I mean, it was novelish. There were things that were just a little bit ridiculous, whatever. But
make that sound worse than a Hollywood romantic comedy.
Yeah, well, whatever.
Novelist. I like that.
So, anyway, James is going to go on talking probably about this, and I mean, he has to talk about the
summing those up.
Greek and Roman technology in the Greek world, because I have to return those to the library. Other people might actually want to go through them, I don't know. So, how's your salad?
It's good.
It's leftovers.
Especially seeing that it's leftover from yesterday.
Well, I brought those out to put in, so it adds more crunch, right? Because otherwise, like I'd put we brought that to a potluck yesterday, and I'd already put the nachos in. Right after I did it, I thought, oh, why did I put the nachos in? Because they're going to be soggy if there's leftovers. And
I kind of like soggy nachos. Maybe not as good as crisp nachos, but I like them.
Okay. So anyway, but putting the Cheetos in, that's better than nachos anyway. I mean, I was telling the people at the potluck it'd be better with those mini Doritos that they now have, like in the Pringles sort of
mini
cans.
Triangles?
Yeah, they're little triangle Doritos. That'd be perfect in that sort of salad. But anyway, I didn't buy any of those. I bought the regular nachos. So anyway, James is going to talk to you about those things, and I'm going to get out of the way. So go ahead, James, and you can, I'll just scoot out. There you go. You're back in. You can talk about whatever you want.
Both of these great courses come highly recommended. I just went through the books, and the books in these great courses are considerably abbreviated when you look at what's offered on the videos. So I know, I saw a bit of the stuff, and it's awesome. So that's all I'm going to say. Please try to understand Greek and Roman technology. Please don't go around saying, oh, it was all invented elsewhere, like in China in the Middle Ages and Muslim empires. Islam was a major step back for the world. Some improvement went on. When I say major step back, I should say it's more like a considerable slowing down of development. Now, what does development mean? It means not so much a suite of a variety of different technologies. What it is basically giving people a choice in terms of technologies, science and technology. That's what progress is to me. Not necessarily following any particular technology to its ultimate end or something like that, but just giving people a choice. And hopefully people, given those choices, have a democratic, something like a democratic means of exercising choice about those choices. That to me is what progress is about. And progress didn't happen much anywhere in the Western world, and I include the Islamic world in that category. Didn't happen much of it. Maybe in the Byzantine Empire. One of these guys had a thing, I think it was in here, Understanding Greek and Roman Technology, saying that, it's generally agreed that kind of like innovation, technological, maybe even scientific, slowed during the Greek and Roman Marathon. Wow, I don't know what sort of means you're using to measure that and who's doing the measuring, but that seems really fallacious, especially when you're looking at this kind of stuff. The Greek world, a study of history and culture. This was very good too. Comes highly recommended. Kind of, it really doesn't cover the history. It kind of covers things up in terms of, as I recall, different things like sculpture. It does give a history, but philosophy, so on and so forth. It kind of is a service. Has to be done. And I think for most people, I don't consider it required. But it comes recommended. The technology one should be more valuable for most people. People are going around saying, oh man, I really don't like technology, but boy, the Chinese were way ahead. Or the Islamic world was way ahead. But I hate technology. We should really go back to primitive communism or something like that. Cut out the garbage. Do a little bit of homework before you start doing stuff like that. Or don't. I don't care. But don't expect me to listen to you. Or if I do listen, don't expect me to keep the half snarl, half sneer off of my face when hearing it. No. The measure. Try to get that. So, explosive. Could be like the watching a 21st century version of Watergate. No. This is way worse than Watergate. It's about Donald Trump being a Russian agent. And I've alluded to something that I've discovered. The possibility, saying the possibility, that Rupert Murdoch has been a Russian mob agent since his little media and publishing empire almost went down. I think it was about over 30 years ago. He was bailed out apparently by one bank. I want to know where that bank, or one lending institution, I want to find out where those folks got their money from. My suspicion is, I'm not saying it's the case, my suspicion is somewhere or another, they might have been innocent, but it might have been a conduit for mafia, for Russian mob money. Well, they might not have realized what was happening, where the money was coming from. They might have. But Rupert Murdoch, Fox Network, they're agents of Russian imperialism. Paleo-imperialism. Oh, it's neo-imperialism, like the United States. No, it's not like the United States at all. And understand that term neo-imperialism is a commie formulation. It's commie boilerplate. I could drag out, I ran across it in a footnote a while back. I think it was on communism the book was about communism in Iran, published in 1966. And the footnote was it was a Russian or commie publication, I think both. And it was the title of the source in the footnote was American Neo-Imperialism, 1961. Okay? Not a new concept, and it's not original to social democrats, from what I can tell. It's just commie boilerplate. You know, like I wish Putin would indulge in that kind of neo-imperialism. I wish the Saddam Husseins of this world would indulge in that kind of neo-imperialism. I wish the commie Chinese would indulge in that kind of neo-imperialism. It would be a huge step up on the kind of criminal activities these idiots have been involved in. Okay? Now, so yeah, I wanted to emphasize that about Rupert Murdoch. I'd like you folks to start checking things up. Don't turn things around the way I suspect Tucker Carlson plagiarized me back in 2023. I suspect. I'm not saying he did, but I'm going to be checking. There's something I think I tweaked in 2022. We'll find out who has priority. But he turned it around. We'll see. He had something to say about a particular news person in 2023. And I said it, but in a semi-approving fashion. He was very disapproving. We'll see. We'll see where he got the idea from. I don't think he was checking the sources. I suspect some Russian bot kind of system was checking things out for certain keywords. Let's say CIA or something like that. Or CIA in the media. And CIA agents in the media. We'll see. We will see. We'll have to check and see Pauline's podcast or whatever to see when I actually understand. You know, like I put it out on the internet. I'd figured it out before then, but my suspicion is the mother Tucker came up with his little formulation in the wake of me coming up with it, and I suspect it is original. Someone else might have come up with it too, but I can't see a idiot like him coming up with much of anything original. Or even unoriginal, coming up with it unoriginal. Probably has his lines spoon-fed to him like Pablo. Now, so for some reason or another, I've been focusing on presidential assassination, and it was because of this. This is before the news about the Trumpster putatively getting shot at. Now, it's kind of funny because the shooter got killed. Usually shooters and assassinations escape. James Earl Ray, Martin Luther King, met out in England, if I'm not mistaken. Was he apprehended at Heathrow Airport or something like that? London's big airport, as I recall. Lee Harvey Oswald. He escaped, of course. He really didn't do it. But whoever done it escaped. Now, the Dallas police apprehended a guy called Eugene Hale Brading. He was using a name something like Jim Braden. He used, I think that was his minimum fourth alias. Or maybe that was his fourth name. Maybe three aliases. Coming out of the Dal Tex building, roughly to the east of the Texas School Book Depository. And, well, I don't think there's any doubt about it now. It wasn't until '66 they were checking his license plate. They got the license plate off his driver's license or something like that. The cops did, and they checked it up, and you know, they didn't check out for a guy called Jim Braden or whatever it was, whatever the name he gave to the Dallas police, or the county authorities. Is it county? Something like that. Sheriff's office. Dallas County? Is it a county? Anyway, this guy was apprehended. He wasn't really arrested. He was just let go. They took down some information on him, and it turned out when someone checked in '66, it was a California driver's license or something like that, and it came up Eugene Hale Brady. And trouble with that, it was just known mafia guy. He was coming out of this building, not really a high rise, not really a low rise, and it had actually, they say, because of some trees located near the Texas Book Depository, it had maybe better sight lines for John F. Kennedy's limousine for a sniper. There was another guy apprehended from that building. He was in a black coat and wearing black gloves, and it had been cool that morning and rainy, but it was kind of sunny then. Black, it's a little much. They just let that guy go, the arresting officers. Coming out of the Daltex building with 2 people apprehended. No one apprehended from the Texas School Book Depository. No one seemed to have got the idea that shots could have come from there. Apparently the site wasn't secured. In other words, people were allowed to go in and out for 28 minutes. So the shooting happened roughly 12:30, and it wasn't until 12:58 that I think it was Captain Will Fritz of the Dallas police stopped in and closed it down. But all of those buildings should have been closed down. So there was a records building, and there was a court building where they actually held prisoners. Some of the prisoners had a kind of like a front row seat, almost balcony seat, really, I should say, for the shooting, because some of the windows in that place, holding cells or whatever, the windows for holding cells opened out onto Dealing Plaza. I was always saying Dealing Plaza. I never heard anyone say it. I just ran across the book. I ran across a woman recently, last couple of weeks or so, who's from Dallas, actually. And she just said Dealing Plaza. So I presume she knows what she's talking about, what she was talking about. Well, I've been reading a book. I didn't bother to bring it out here because I didn't want to let too much heat inside. It's quite warm out here. It's warm in there, but I want to keep it a little bit cooler in there. It's by a guy called David Shine, or Dave Shine, published 1988. Gone off by 1 year or another, one way or another. I hope you guys will forgive me. Or not. Doesn't matter. Anyway, his book is called The Mafia Murder of JFK, and it prompted me to read something that was published significantly later, I think 17 years later, 2005, and these guys got it more correct. They're not concentrating just on the mob. They're looking at disaffected elements from Cuba and ultimate sacrifice, I think what it's called. But disaffected elements from Cuba, from Castro's Cuba, generally come to the United States, maybe probably some other places too. And then disaffected elements from the CIA, including idiots like E. Howard Hunt. A lot of people, that were maybe both disaffected Cubans and involved with the CIA. I think Frank Fiorino, maybe is the way you pronounce his last name. He was known during the Watergate burglaries and their aftermath as Frank Sturgis. Eugenio, forgotten his last name just for the moment. There's a lot of heat around, a lot of noise in the background, so kind of a little bit distracting. But Bernard Barker, mafia type of guy, I don't know if that was an anglicized kind of name, but he was involved in Watergate, as I recall, and somehow or another involved with plots to assassinate Castro, and my suspicion is maybe on a peripheral at least plot to assassinate Kennedy. Anyway, these guys in 2005, it's almost 20 years ago, figured it out at all. I don't know exactly why people want, like it wouldn't be, I don't think there'd be many more revelations in, you're saying in this book, there are 1 million documents about the assassination that haven't been released or hadn't been released in 2005. I think some have been released. Yeah, in the interim, it would be probably a small percentage of that. 1 million documents. And originally the Warren Commission was saying basically nothing. FBI, CIA stuff. Records. Yeah. Well. Anyway, like I don't think there'd be anything that could be any more of a revelation. I think they finally figured out in 2005. So they're saying there's this guy called Harry Williams. I think that was an anglicized kind of name. I believe he was from Cuba with a Latino kind of name, and he was working with Robert Kennedy and a few other folks, including disaffected Cubans. I don't think he really realized it, that some of those disaffected Cubans were working with the mafia, not just to kill off Castro, but to kill off Kennedy, JFK, too. One time. Anyway, it's kind of funny the way I've mentioned this, but how they pussyfooted around who Harry Williams and Robert Kennedy was working with leading up to the assassination of JFK. There was supposed to be a coup arranged by Williams, Robert Kennedy, and others in Cuba to get rid of Castro, and it involved whacking Castro, because it's hard to get rid of these things. It's like trying to get rid of cancer. Like you don't treat this stuff with jail terms. That's equivalent of chemo. You got to get rid of it. Just cut it out. That's about the only way you can cure cancer. And cutting out Castro would involve whacking. And they say, we're not going to say who this guy is, multiple times in the book. We're not going to reveal who this guy is or was. But every time they'll mention this guy, we're not going to, and then a paragraph later, meanwhile, at this time, Che Guevara was doing this. Happens again and again and again. It was Che Guevara. Che Guevara was planning on, with the Americans, to whack Fidel Castro. They'd already had something like a falling out. And, you get a couple of guys like that, particularly Castro. They're used to kind of leading, well, misleading. And there's, it's just like Stalin coming along and seeing Lenin in the cat's bird seat, and okay, get some doctors to feed Lenin something that causes a series of strokes. Not hard to do. Lenin actually has the ultimate stroke and dies. 1924, I think it was. But he was laid up for, I think, almost 3 years. That's a series of strokes, increasingly in capacity. These guys